The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over Somerville, the quaint town where I had spent my entire 24 years. It was a place that seemed to exist only in a postcard, complete with white picket fences, blooming gardens, and the sweet scent of blooming lilacs wafting through the air. Each day in my little oasis provided a sense of certainty, a comforting routine that revolved around my job at the local library, filled with dusty books and the soft rustling of pages turning. I cherished the peace of my days, a welcome contrast to the simmering chaos that brewed beneath the surface of my family life. My parents, always the picture-perfect couple, savored their roles as ideal parents, basking in the regard of the community while showering their attention on my younger brother Kyle, the true apple of their eye. I often felt like a shadow in their spotlight, a diligent student of their perfection, always trying to understand the nuances of their adoration for him. But on one seemingly ordinary Sunday evening, the delicate fabric of our family would fray, setting into motion a series of events that would unravel everything I thought I knew. The aroma of my mother's famous roast chicken filled our modest home, wrapping around us like a warm embrace as we gathered around the dining table. The table was adorned with vibrant roasted vegetables, golden fluffy rolls nestled in a basket, and the tantalizing scent of apple pie wafting from the kitchen, a beacon of family unity that my mother so lovingly crafted. As laughter echoed through the walls, I felt my heart skip a beat, caught in a whirlwind of warmth and love. Yet, beneath that enticing meal lay shadows of unsaid words and concealed truths that lingered like ghosts in the corners of our home. When I glanced over at Kyle, seated across from me, I noticed that he had withdrawn into an uncomfortable silence. The usual banter that accompanied our family dinners was noticeably absent, and my gaze flickered back to my parents, hoping they would notice the strange atmosphere hanging heavy around us. Instead, Dad, in a weak attempt to lighten the tension that I could feel tightening like a noose, suddenly let slip a comment that shattered the fragile peace. "I think we need to talk about the adoption, Kyle. It is not like they just want to keep the little pup for themselves." The word adoption hit me like a heavy stone, a shocking refrain that echoed through my brain, drowning out the sounds of clinking silverware and bursting laughter. My heart dropped. I turned my head to see Kyle's expression darkening, the light in his eyes dimming as if a storm was brewing just beneath his surface. An icy chill crept into my chest as I realized we had ventured into ominous territory. Who is adopting who? I asked, my voice trembling with curiosity and fear. The words tasted foreign on my tongue, laced with an urgency that propelled me to dig deeper, even as confusion swirled around me like a dense fog. The responses were immediate. My parents exchanged anxious glances that conveyed more than words ever could. Their eyes, wide with surprise and unspoken regret, spoke volumes in the silence, revealing the weight of the suppressed truth they had both been so careful to avoid. I could almost hear the ticking of clocks, as if time itself paused in that moment, forcing us to linger on the precipice of our unraveling family. "What is going on?" The question rushed from my lips, spurred by a surge of protest against the lie that had settled over us like a heavy shroud. I was desperate to understand not just Kyle's pain, but the entire landscape of our family's hidden truths. My mother, usually so steady, shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her fingers fumbling with the edge of the tablecloth. Dad cleared his throat, but the sound rang hollow in the air. The din of laughter, previously a source of comfort, now felt like a cruel reminder of the delicate facade we had maintained for so long. As silence gripped the table, Kyle's face twisted in anguish. A storm raged behind his green eyes, a tempest full of untamed emotions that I had never seen before. He pushed his chair back and stood abruptly, towering over the table, an island of hurt in a sea of confusion. "You think this is a joke?" he shouted, glaring at our parents, his voice sharp enough to slice through the tension. "You think I am just some little bastard they decided to adopt out because you are too ashamed of what I am?" The explosion of resentment echoed off the walls, and my heart raced as the words lodged deep in my gut, painful and sharp. What was happening? My brother, my once easygoing, joyful brother, was suddenly unrecognizable. I felt paralyzed, torn between the shock of his revelation and the deep-seated loyalty I held for my family. "But we love you, Kyle," my mother said, her voice teetering on the brink of desperation. She barely looked like my mother in that moment, her carefully controlled demeanor cracking under the weight of the truth. "We never meant to." "Love, you call this love?" he interrupted, his voice cracking with emotion. "You were ready to send me away. Do you even understand what that means to a kid? To be unwanted, to be a burden no one wants to claim." I felt the heat rise in my chest, a cocktail of indignation flaring inside me as I watched the realization sink in. Did they think I would just sit here, listening to this painful tableau unfold without getting involved? I lifted my chin defiantly, ready to fight for Kyle, to stand by my brother in this moment of chaos. Kyle, please, I urged, leaning forward. Try to calm down. I am sure they did not mean it this way, just tell us what you are feeling. His gaze shot to me, his expression fluctuating between hurt and confusion. What do you think I feel? I can't believe they are telling you this stuff while sitting at the dining table like it's nothing. I am just supposed to be okay with it. His voice cracked, layered with a blend of desperation and anger so raw that I could feel it cutting through the air between us. It's not nothing, I argued back, desperate to reach him. You have to help us understand, just talk to me, we can solve this. My heart raced, pounding against my chest like thunder, the stakes so much higher than I had anticipated. Kyle shook his head vehemently, the pain spilling from his expression like rain on a dreary day. Solve what? The fact that I was never meant to belong. Maybe I am just the mistake of a marriage built on appearances. I'm just, what did they call me? A little bastard that they never wanted. The words hung in the air, heavy with their cruel truth, and I felt as if the floor beneath me was crumbling away. How could they have kept this from me, this secret that could twist our lives into knots? I clutched the edge of my seat, fighting back rising feelings of betrayal toward our parents, a growing rage boiling inside me as suddenly everything changed in our family dynamic. I need you to tell me everything, I whispered, lowering my voice to cut through the swell of emotions that had spiraled out of control. The truth can't hurt us more than the lies if you tell us together. Whatever happened, whatever they did, it cannot take away your light. You're not a little bastard, Kyle. You are so much more. In that moment, there was a heart-wrenching pause like the calm before a storm. The tension in the room felt unbearable, cloaking us in a dark cloud as Kyle seemed torn between unfolding his pain and the fear of what that would mean for him. Would they even listen as we sat in that charged silence? I glanced toward my parents, and the look on my mother's face struck me like a bolt of lightning. She was not the perfect parent I once believed. A shadow of guilt loomed over her, revealing cracks in her carefully crafted image, cracks that bled into me. Kyle, she began slowly, almost hesitantly, it was never about you not being wanted. Her voice trailed off, and the anguish I saw in her eyes made my heart ache. I had never witnessed such weariness in her before. They thought I would be like a puppy that could just be handed to someone else. Kyle hissed through clenched teeth, eyes fiery and full of hurt, even if it crumbled me to pieces. Mom reached for him but then hesitated, sensing the growing walls around him that had been built from years of hidden truths. We need you to know that we were scared too. We never wanted to hurt you. We were struggling to cope with everything we saw in the past. We did not know. I did not ask for your excuses. Kyle shouted, eyes blazing, cutting her off again. I would never do that. I love you, she pleaded, but her voice felt frail, and I could sense that the history of unprocessed feelings had finally found its voice, but it seemed to ring hollow. I could feel every thread of anger wrapping tightly around my insides, fueling the fire that was beginning to burn fiercely in me. I felt the ground beneath my feet shifting, breaking apart the illusion that our family had carefully constructed, one crumb at a time. In that moment, I told myself that I would make them understand the depth of the pain they had inflicted, not just on Kyle but on all of us, the burden of their hypocrisy weighing down upon our home. I drew in a sharp breath, setting my resolve. I would not let my brother stand alone in this storm. I envisioned a future where the truth would prevail, one that would expose the shadows lurking in our quiet little home, unveiling a path to healing I did not see ahead. The road ahead would be treacherous, with battles waiting to be fought, but I would become the voice that would echo against the oppressive silence. My family would have to reckon with the storm, and they would do so alongside me. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. Weeks trudged by like a slow march, each day seeming more tedious than the last, taunting me like a vulture circling overhead, picking at the flesh of my unresolved feelings. My parents, in their scrambling effort to reconcile the shattered remains of our family dynamic, only reminded me of the enormity of their missteps. Every forced smile they wore felt like a mask, concealing the guilt that shadowed them like an ominous cloud. As the moments unfolded, I felt my heart, still bruised and battered, cling stubbornly to the memories of betrayal that hung around my neck like a noose ready to tighten with each passing day. I could not ignore the disdain coating my thoughts whenever I glimpsed my mother's attempt to bake my favorite cookies, the aroma wafting through the air, reminding me not of love, but of secrets and unanswered questions lingering in the corners of our home. I chose instead to redirect my focus, turning my energy towards rehabilitating my relationship with Kyle. It felt like a punishment to my parents, a small act of rebellion that fueled my sense of power as they remained in limbo, desperately trying to piece together something they had shattered. Our weekends transformed into our sacred space away from the weight of the past. We explored the town, rediscovering old haunts, laughing about past mischiefs even while wrapped in the tension of recent history. With each adventure, every shared smile, I witnessed my brother slowly replacing the remnants of resentment with bursts of laughter, and each moment we shared began to weave back together the fragile threads of our connection. But my parents were relentless, or maybe they were just naive in their belief that they could pave over our history with warm dinners and half-hearted apologies. One evening, the air in our house felt heavy with an unspoken agenda, subtly punctuated by the clatter of pots and pans in a frantic frenzy as my mother prepared another feast, desperately clutching at the idea of rebuilding our family dynamic. I could hear the sizzling of chicken on the stove, the sharp scent of garlic filling the air, but it did little to quench the anxiety bubbling within me. Kyle and I exchanged uneasy glances, our eyes mirroring the turbulence brewing in our hearts. There was a whisper of hope on the breeze, but it danced precariously close to fear. I felt like a deer standing frozen in the path of an oncoming vehicle, unsure whether to flee or stay. When we gathered around the table, the atmosphere was electric, crackling with tension. It felt as if we were treading on shards of glass, where even the lightest of words could cut deeper than any blade. My father cleared his throat, the sound puncturing through the silence like a cannon shot. "We want to talk about what happened, Amelia Kyle." The way he said my name hung in the air, weighing heavily upon my chest. I could feel my heart pounding, the rhythm echoing in my ears as I half-heartedly nodded, bracing myself for the onslaught of feelings that were sure to follow. My father continued, an earnestness lacing his voice. "We have been thinking about the decision regarding the adoption. It was a mistake. We should have told you two sooner. You have to understand." The words spilled from his lips, but I felt a swell of frustration rise within me like a tidal wave. Understand? Understand what? The edge in my voice surprised even me, crashing through the dense tension. "You might have raised us, but you kept us living in the shadows of your secrets. You didn't give us a chance to understand anything." The heat of my anger flared, momentarily blinding me to the shame flickering behind my mother's eyes. I took in a shaky breath, grounding myself as I gazed at my brother. The strength I found in his presence was both comforting and rallying. "What you told Kyle was unforgivable. You made him feel unwanted." I turned to Kyle, whose fingers were gripping his fork like it was a lifeline, knuckles white and strained. I wanted to pull him into my embrace, away from the memories that had coiled around him like snakes determined to squeeze the joy from his life. "You should have never had to go through that." His eyes met mine, shining with unspoken words, anxiety bathing the atmosphere heavier than before. The room seemed to douse us in silence, thick with unending emotions. I could feel something shifting, a softening in my parents as they clung to each other, silently reaching for understanding even amidst the chaos. Their hearts were not made of stone, even they bore the weight of their guilt, a clever mask they wore dedicated to deception. When they left the table, seeking solace from the storm, Kyle turned to me, his expression a mix of uncertainty and hope. "What do you think?" he asked quietly, as if the mere act of speaking could shatter whatever fragile truce we were grasping at. "They are really trying," I replied, my voice quieter now. My heart resided in a tumultuous dance, conflicted yet laced with cautious optimism. I could see that both Kyle and I had walls built around our hearts, a fortress aging with sorrow, yet there was a whisper of possibility in the air. But we cannot rush into forgiveness. That is not something you can give away like candy. Days slipped through our fingers like sand in an hourglass, yet the distance between us and our parents began to dwindle with every family dinner. They came to recognize us as individuals, unearthing the scars their actions had etched into our hearts. I listened to my mother's heartfelt apologies, watched her brow furrow as she wrestled with words, and slowly the layers of hesitation began to peel away. Her tears were proving how genuine their attempts at reconciliation were. In the midst of this chaos, something remarkable began to unfurl within me. The seeds of acceptance were taking root. Maybe we could heal together, but like all healings, it would take time. The heartbreaking adoption idea that had once hovered like a specter over our lives had swiftly faded into the realms of dream and dust, and we began creating a fresh narrative filled with understanding and an awakened desire to mend. I swallowed hard whenever the rush of pain and anger surged forward, but nestled within the turbulence was a flicker of hope. I glimpsed the soft light at the end of this arduous and dark tunnel we had been wandering through together for far too long. We were a work in progress with plenty to unpack, but we were working on it together, treading cautiously yet determined to rise from the ashes of our past. Do you remember when we used to sneak out late to see the stars? Kyle asked suddenly, a smile breaking across his face. I blinked at him, momentarily confused as the memory unfurled before me like a tattered flag. I had almost forgotten. I laughed softly, letting the warmth of our shared past envelop me. We would tiptoe down the staircase, holding our breath until we made it outside. Dad would have killed us if he knew. His laughter echoed my own, ringing out and momentarily tethering us back to happier times. Grinning, I leaned back in my chair. You remember how we thought we could see every constellation? You were so convinced that the Big Dipper was a spaceship. The retelling opened the floodgates of memories, washing over us like a reassuring tide, wrapping us both in nostalgic warmth. Stars from the back of our house, he mused, his gaze drifting upwards as if pulling foresight from the heavens. That was our universe, wasn't it? Before everything went haywire. The sharp pang of loss mingled with the sweetness of recollection. I found my heart aching for that innocent joy, for those moments untouched by secrets and pain. Yes, I whispered, sealing those memories deep inside, where they could stay untouched and intact. A home where guilt couldn't reach them, untainted by the harshness of reality. Perhaps they could someday serve as the foundation for a new bridge, one that would lead us to forgiveness or at least understanding. As laughter faded and the warmth of the memories lingered, we both knew we stood at a crossroads. But the real journey lay ahead of us, paved with patience. My heart still felt the waves of betrayal rippling beneath the surface, yet I held Kyle's hand tightly as we began to chart our path forward, step by tentative step. We were no longer scattered pieces of a broken puzzle. Together, we were piecing together a new picture, one where the past's shadows struggled to penetrate the light we were gradually allowing to seep in as the months rolled by. The scorching wounds began to heal, some scars fading while others remained as silent reminders of what we endured. I often glanced at my reflection in the mirror, tracing my fingertips over the remnants of pain. Each mark was a story, a history of battles fought and lost, yet they also whispered of resilience. It was a peculiar feeling, standing at the crossroads of forgiveness and revenge, having pondered on those avenues endlessly. My relationship with Kyle blossomed, transforming like spring flowers pushing through the remnants of winter's chill. We became inseparable, weaving a tapestry of laughter and understanding that filled the void left by our lost trust. One vibrant afternoon, the sun hung high in a pool of azure, the air sweet with the scent of blossoming flowers. We found ourselves at Somerville's picturesque park, the kind of place that seemed to wrap its warmth around you like a favorite blanket. The laughter of children danced in the air, mixing with the rustling leaves and the distant sound of a fountain splashing. Kyle, with the unfiltered joy of childhood in his eyes, suddenly took off chasing a butterfly flitting from flower to flower. It was a whimsical sight, the way he ran, arms outstretched, almost as if he could reach out and pluck the delicate creature from the air. "Catch it, Kyle," I teased, my voice lilting with encouragement. My heart danced at the sight, a stark contrast to the weight of the memories we had been carrying. He laughed, a sound that bubbled up from deep within him, pure and infectious. "I almost got it," he exclaimed, appearing delighted, though I knew he was a long way from achieving his goal. Time slipped by as we indulged in our revived innocence, the kind that sometimes felt overshadowed by the heaviness of our past. We laughed and teased, rolling on the grass, the sunshine painting us both in shades of gold. "Do you remember when we used to chase fireflies?" he asked, breathless after a failed attempt at catching the butterfly. "Like it was yesterday," I replied, my heart swelling as the memory washed over me. "You always caught the most, while I was left with nothing but an empty jar." He rolled onto his back, the sunlight dappling his face through the leaves of the grand oak tree above us. "We should do that again, fireflies and all, just the two of us. And maybe we could make a contest out of it," he proposed, a competitive spark igniting his bright eyes. "There's no contest, Kyle. You will definitely win," I replied with a smile. And in that moment, the shadows behind us felt lighter, the warmth of the sun reflecting the warmth blossoming between us. Yet, even in these moments laced with joy, the reality of our parents' actions simmered beneath the surface. It was hard not to feel that menacing shadow creeping in again, reminding us of the chaos that once consumed our family. They had done a great deal to show us love and recovery: family therapy sessions, open conversations, shared activities, and slowly like petals unfurling under the sun, we were rebuilding. Family movie nights became a cherished ritual, complete with popcorn and laughter echoing in our cozy living room. We would tease each other over whose choice of movie was the best, retreating to our separate corners of the couch with exaggerated huffs, only to erupt in fits of giggles moments later. Then there were the family karaoke evenings, where we belted out our favorite songs, voices blending and clashing in hilarious attempts at harmony. I could almost swear we sounded like a pop group in our own imaginations. But one evening, after another family dinner, everything shifted. The mood was different as we settled onto the couch, the rich smell of roasted chicken still lingering in the air. My mother looked at us both, her eyes glistening, the kind of shimmer that hinted at a pool of uncried tears. "We want to tell you something special," she murmured, her voice shaky with the weight of emotion flooding the space between us. I waited with bated breath, eager yet unsure of what was coming next. My father shifted closer to her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder, grounding her amidst the moment. "We are proud of how strong you both have become," he said, his voice steady, yet it cracked ever so slightly. "We are sorry for everything, and we wish we could take it back." The warmth that usually radiated from our little family felt like it had sputtered. I felt the conflicting emotions rise like tides within me, battling against one another, accept the apology and heal, or hold on to the bitterness that still quietly simmered just under my skin. Kyle, with his steady resolve, broke the silence. "We appreciate everything you have done, but it will take time for us to fully heal." His words were soft yet firm, wise beyond his years. I admired his ability to articulate that, to take a stand when the world around us seemed to tremble. My mother nodded, her face flushing with gratitude, and for a heartbeat, it felt like we were on the brink of something beautiful. "We understand that," she whispered, a soft sigh escaping her lips, relief mingling in the air. In that moment, I recognized a significant turning point. Perhaps for the first time in a long while, we had shared raw honesty. It felt like we had carved a small path towards healing, one that we could travel together. Kyle's weighted acknowledgement hung in the air, and I knew that the four of us had come further than we might have thought possible. As seasons changed, moments slipped into cherished memories. Birthdays were celebrated with genuine smiles, and we would reminisce about the darker days, transforming them into lessons of growth instead. I began to grasp that our family had been gifted a second chance. The ghosts from our past lingered, but they transformed from terror into shadows, guiding lights nudging us forward while reminding us of the strength we had discovered together. One evening, I found myself deep in thought. Sitting at the table, I was surrounded by familiar echoes of laughter from the living room. I learned that revenge, while craving its sweet taste, could often obscure the clearer vision of love. My mind flickered back to the moments I had considered exposing our parents' wrongs. In seeking to unearth their past mistakes, I had awakened not anger, but a type of strength that surged within our family. The more I let go, the more I found myself appreciating the imperfect bond we shared. It wasn't the pursuit of vengeance that ultimately bound us together. It was the recognition of our flaws and the effort to move forward hand in hand. Each shared moment, each moment of vulnerability, became a stitch binding together the fabric of our family. Kyle and I emerged stronger, fortified not just by our scars, but also by the love and understanding we cultivated through it all. We became allies, encouraging one another at each new trial as if we were battling dragons together, swords drawn and armor shining. As I watched him thrive, my heart burst with pride. He was carving his own path, a bright beacon amidst the darkness we had once known. And amidst it all, I discovered peace, an overwhelming sense of quietude that wrapped itself around me, a sense of belonging that felt akin to home. Our hearts intertwined in this newly formed bond of resilience. I realized that the shadows we thought defined us no longer held any power. Instead, they guided us towards a future where laughter triumphed over pain, and love interwoven carried us gently, confidently into whatever awaited us down the road. The journey had not been easy, nor was it finished, but together, with forgiveness at the core of our story, we had laid the foundation for brighter days to come. And in that soft embrace of understanding, I felt hopeful not just for myself, but for the family we had chosen to nurture, to rebuild, to love unconditionally against all odds.